chat box. For the tech support people, it takes an enormous number of people to host these online meetings and keep track of all the moving parts. So let's all do our part and make it as simple for them as possible. Type your name into that chat box so that they can more easily get attendance and establish a quorum for this meeting. All right, I think at this point we're just about ready to go. So welcome everyone. This is yet another fabulous online congregational meeting of the Thomas Jefferson Memorial Church Unitarians Universalist. My name is Lori Craddock and I'm the president of the Board of Trustees. At this moment, please raise your hand and keep it up to verify that everyone can hear. We want to make sure that everyone can see and hear what's going on. And the tech support crew is just going to peruse these screens real quick to see if anyone is not hearing us loud and clear. So keep it up there for just a sec to make sure that we can all hear you and you can hear us and that technology is working as it should.
Wayne can hear. Okay, great. Vicky, can you hear? Oh, Vicky disappeared.
JJ Towler seems to be having trouble, but she ran away, so she's figuring it out, I guess.
Okay. If you're on the phone, you can do *9 to raise your virtual hand.
JJ, unmute yourself so we can help you.
Oh, wait.
And for those of you who don't want to have your video on, you can put the little reaction sign up. I saw a few people put their thumbs up. That's a way of saying you're hearing us. Put a thumbs up, and that way we don't have to see your picture, or if you don't have a camera, but you can put the thumbs up, and then we see that we hear you.
Got it.
Okay, I couldn't see where to put my name in the chat box. Am I on the list?
Oh.
Have I been accepted as attending?
Yep, I think we're going to put you on.
Yes, you're all good.
Okay. All right. That's just what I'm. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Tech crew, are we ready to move forward then? It feels like we've got this under control.
Yes.
All righty.
Can you put Albert Reynolds on? I don't know how to sign him in. I'm
trying to sign in. I don't know how.
Yeah, that's okay. We got you.
Gotcha, Al.
okay.
Thank you.
Here,
Got us
you
covered.
got you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Good
Al.
to see you.
All righty. So back to the script. Here we go. This meeting is being held virtually rather than in person because of health concerns created by the pandemic and respect for the recommendation of public health professionals that people engage in physical distancing. And as you can imagine, we all look forward to meeting again in person when it is appropriate. Our bylaws state that members must be present to vote at a congregational meeting. And in these unusual times, the board has decided that present will mean present at the Zoom congregational meeting. When we can convene again in person, a congregational meeting will be held then to vote on amending the bylaws to consider this situation. Today, when we vote, we will be using an online service called Election Buddy so that the ballots will be secret ballots. You will be receiving an Election Buddy email in just a few minutes with a unique identifier and links to the ballot. Today, I will be giving everyone a password to vote after the discussions on both these issues are complete, and you will be unable to vote without that password. Let me say it again. There's a password today for extra security on this vote. And after both the discussions on the budget and on the name change are finished, then we will give out the password. And you can't vote until you have that password. So please don't leave the meeting and miss the password. Stick around, get the password at the end of both discussions, and then you'll be able to vote. And when it is time to vote and you do have the password and you click on the link for Election Buddy, we're going to take a 15 to 20-minute break. So there's not a frantic, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time moment. Everyone will have plenty of time, and there'll be lots of tech support if you have any issues. And people voting by phone, we've got you covered as well. There are people monitoring the phones who will unmute you and take you to breakout rooms so that your vote can be recorded as well. So we're doing everything we can today to make sure everyone is heard and all the votes are recorded in an appropriate manner. All right, so once again, if you're a TJMC member and you haven't done it yet, please click on the chat icon at the bottom of your screen and type your name for both attendance and to verify that we have a quorum. And if you're calling into the meeting and you need to unmute, you can press *6 on your cell phone, and it's like a toggle, on, off, for *6, and that will unmute you. And if you're on a cell phone, you can also press *9, and that will raise your hand and lower your hand. So for those of you on a cell phone, those are two important things to remember. But again, we have lots of tech support people who are ready to help if you have any problems with the cell phone or with your Zoom link on your computer. All right, before we get started with the meeting, we're going to hear from Matthew Diazio, who's acting today as our parliamentarian, and he's going to go over some of the practices and procedures that we'll be using at this meeting. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Matthew for a couple minutes. Matthew?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Diazio, and as Lori mentioned, I will be acting as the parliamentarian for the meeting today. So in this church, we use our bylaws to govern our practices, and within the bylaws, it states that our procedures will be governed by Robert's Rules of Orders, the latest revised edition in all cases not covered by the bylaws. So recognize that Robert's Rules are supplementing the areas that our bylaws don't cover, and also sparing us from having 200-page bylaws. We use these rules to ensure that member rights are protected, to ensure that there is full and free discussion in democratic decision-making, and to protect the stability of our process. When it comes time to discuss motions made during the meetings, you will need to use the chat box to make note of your desire to be recognized to speak. You will type one of three things into the chat box. Pro, to indicate that you want to speak in favor of the motion. Con, to indicate that you want to speak in opposition to the motion. Or order, to indicate that you have a point of order or a procedural question about what we are doing. Pro, con, or order should be the only words that you enter in the chat box. The chat box is recorded, even the private chats, so please be aware that the secretary will see whatever you write in the chat box. Elizabeth Breeden will be monitoring the cons, Elaine Chapman will be monitoring for pros, and I will be monitoring for orders typed in the chat box. You must be recognized by the chair in order to speak. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes, and David Shutt will be acting as our timer. You will obtain the floor or the right to speak by entering pro, con, or order in the chat box. And then you will need to wait for the chair to recognize you before you unmute and begin speaking.
And one of the
Yes. And
that was just a glitch, Matt. You're good.
Okay. And then we do recognize that for people who are accessing by phone, you don't type in the chat box. So unmute themselves and wait to speak until you're recognized. Our tech support will be monitoring for people who are using phones to see that they have unmuted. So you will not be left out of the conversation. Carolyn Hines will be monitoring people accessing the meeting by phone to make sure that you are included. I will answer procedural questions, and Lori will also alternate between pro and con voices on the motions. Point of order questions will jump to the front of the line. We ask that you please not hold up signs if you're attending by video. Please only use the chat box to request permission to speak. We want a full discussion, but we hope to limit the discussion to 45 minutes for each motion to respect everyone's time. Comments must be 2 minutes or less. If we find the discussion does go on for a very long time, or that we only have speakers on one side of the issue, we will then limit to comments to 1 minute. And then there are major motions used in our congregational meetings. There is a motion to call the question or move the previous question. This ends the discussion and any amendments before the chair has ended the discussion. Calling the question in this online meeting requires that you enter one of these phrases in the chat box and that you then be recognized by the chair. A 2/3 vote is required to end discussion before it would have normally ended otherwise. and then the vote on the motion will be taken. Calling the question is not debatable. We discourage the use of this motion because it is a very serious point and may lead us out of covenant. This motion is seen as aggressive, and its use may silence the minority in a discussion. You were required by Robert's rules to be recognized for the vote because you must identify yourself to deny the minority their rights to continue discussion. And finally, some major points. If the point you wish to make has already been made in conversation, there is no need to restate it. We have the secretary to take our minutes to make sure everything is recorded. And we do heavily encourage you, and you will be required, to limit your time speaking in favor or against a motion to 2 minutes. David Shutt is our timekeeper and will signal to you when you have 10 seconds left. And we will shorten the comment time to 1 minute when we have heard all the comments from either the pro or the con line.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Matthew. So once again, comments will be limited to 2 minutes, and if we're running long, we'll shorten that to 1 minute. David Shutt is our timekeeper, and he's got some jingle bells to let you know when you have 10 seconds left in your comment. All righty. Finally, this specially called meeting of TJMC UU will now come to order. Our first order of business is to establish a quorum. Membership stood at 377 members as of August 24th, 2020. And according to our bylaws, 10% of the membership, or 38 members, constitute a quorum. Brett Gastinger is our teller this afternoon. Brett, do you have a head count?
We are still checking people in, but we have at least 136 people already checked in.
Excellent. 136 is definitely more than 38. So at this point, a quorum has been established and our congregation is able to conduct business. Once again, my name is Lori Craddock and I am the president of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to this meeting. I invite you to read with me our covenant, which is about to go up on the screen as a slide. In order to create the beloved community we all desire for ourselves, we, the congregation of the Thomas Jefferson Memorial Church, Unitarian Universalist, covenant to communicate with compassion and respect, especially when we disagree, celebrate diversity and nurture our inclusivity, embrace one another spiritually and emotionally, promote social justice within our congregation and the larger community, generously support the ministries of the church with time, money, and enthusiasm, and when we have fallen short, lovingly call each other back into covenant. Thank you, Sean, for putting up that slide. I want to begin by recognizing Beth Jager-Landis, our board secretary, who's taking minutes for us today. And again, Matthew Diazio, who's been so kind as to volunteer to be the parliamentarian. And all the members of the committees, the board, and the staff, including our interim lead minister, Linda Olson-Peebles, who has helped prepare for this meeting. I also want to especially thank Sean and Caroline Hines and the entire tech team for running this Zoom meeting and all the extra technical support it requires. Thanks to our assistants who are available by phone to help anyone who has difficulties with the voting system, which we'll get to in just a little while. And at this time, I would like to recognize our Director of Faith Development, Leah Derlin-Jones, who will offer our opening words and light our chalice.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to invite you just to fully find yourself in your body, wherever you may be seated right now. And I invite you just to take a nice cleansing breath. And I have some words to offer you, adapted from Kathy Huff. Spirit of life, be present with us this hour. Join us today as we gather in a wider search for truth and purpose. In this quest, may we greet one another with open hearts and minds. May we inspire each other to consider new questions and seek deeper meaning. May we cultivate wisdom and compassion. Let all who enter this Zoom room see a welcoming face, hear a kind word, and find connection in this community. And may all this be done and said today in service to love and justice. Amen and blessed be.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Leah. All right. Our first order of business is the approval of the agenda. We have a little housekeeping here. So Sean is going to put up the agenda slide so you can all see what's coming up throughout this meeting. And if are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? And if so, please type them into the chat box or unmute yourself on your phone. And please realize that if we do change the agenda, we have to vote on that. All right, I don't see anything coming up. So with no entries in the chat box and no one on the phone wanting to change the agenda, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I move.
I so move.
Thank you. And do I hear a second?
Second.
Excellent. The question is on the approval of the agenda. Please raise your hand to vote, only if you're a member. And we're also going to try something else to practice our fabulous computer skills. Look on the bottom of your Zoom screen and see where it says participants. Click on that, and then a long list of names should come up over there on the side. And at the bottom of that long list, you'll see it says yes, no, go slower, go faster. If you're voting in agreement with this agenda, click yes. And if you're voting in disagreement with this agenda, click no. All right? Does that make sense? This is a much faster way for us to vote on these things rather than sit here with our hands in the air while Brett goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you have done that, and I see 98 of us have in fact clicked yes, now 100, now 101, we have voted on the agenda. And it automatically resets itself, or Sean will reset it for the next vote. So congratulations to everyone. You have learned a new technical skill clicking on that little participant thing. All right. And if you are on the phone, you can't do that, but you'll need to unmute yourself for a sec to vote yes or no on the agenda. So if anyone is on the phone, those votes will be recorded as well. I believe Caroline's monitoring the phone. All right, you may lower your hands now. I think with 101 people voting in favor of the agenda, I think we can jump to the conclusion that the agenda has passed. All right, and Breck, do you confer with that a majority has voted for the?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, excellent. All right, we're going to practice that again. The next item of business is the approval of the minutes from the last congregational meeting. Once again, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the August 23rd, 2020 congregational meeting? And if you have an addition or correction, please type it now in the chat box. And if you're on your phone, unmute and wait to be recognized for additions or corrections to the minutes of the last congregational meeting. All right, I don't believe I see anything. So there being no further addition or corrections, do I hear a motion to accept these minutes? I'm sure.
Move to accept.
Yes, and the motion needs to be seconded.
I second.
Excellent. Okay, and once again, please go click on participants. And if you're in agreement that we're accepting these minutes, please click yes. And if you don't want to accept the minutes, click no. And if you're on your telephone, someone will unmute you and receive your vote. All right. Once again, I see 103 people have voted to accept these minutes. And I believe that is more than enough. we can call that the majority voting in the affirmative. Brack, do you agree with that? Does that sound right? All right. So the minutes are approved as distributed. The next thing we're moving on to is the budget. And before we start these conversations, I want to remind you that we're voting on both the budget and the name change at the same time. And that time will be after both discussions. So we're going to have the budget discussion, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll have the name change discussion, and then we'll vote on both items after both the discussions are finished. And the reason that we're doing it that way is because every time we have a vote, Election Buddy charges us $89. And so we don't want to be charged $89 twice. We're just going to do it once and have 2 questions on 1 vote. So just hang on. Once we're done with the budget discussion, just remember everything that we said. We're going to go through the name change, and then when the name change is done, then we'll vote on both issues. And once again, to increase security, we do have a password for these votes, and I'll be giving out the passwords after the name change discussion. So don't leave the meeting. You will need that password to vote. So that's still a ways down the road. All right, at this point, I would like to call on our treasurer, Stan Walker, to introduce the budget.
Thanks, Laurie. The first thing I want to say is I have got to recognize the truly indispensable work that the Finance Committee has done this past year in working on this budget. Gloria Morgan, Rosalie Samari, Doug Webbink, and Marion Wendelin, the chair of finance. This would be a very different budget without all of their hard work. Their willingness to point out mistakes means that we have the best possible budget that I think we could come up with under the circumstances. And of course, it goes without saying these days, we'd be hard pressed to accomplish anything this year without the remarkable work of Sean. He has been absolutely, truly indispensable in so many different ways for the church overall, but specifically for the finances. We are lucky that he is here on our side. Now, I hope that everyone has read the materials that were made available for this budget. At this point, this budget is a bare bones budget. It is balanced, but it is bare bones. The $83,000 in the payroll protection plan money we could not have done it without that. We required that. Including that 2 of the staff also gave up part of their negotiated benefits in order to help make this a balanced budget, and we are truly thankful for their sacrifice. Just to talk about the budget a little bit, just a few pie charts here, just to illustrate a few things. This pie chart shows you the overall income that we are projecting for the coming year. You'll notice that that big blue area is the pledge income we're projecting for the year. That's a little over $393,000, and that's 70% of our overall income. The other 30% of our income is on the next slide. And you see there that fully half of that is the payroll protection plan money. We are counting that as income this year, even though currently it still is a loan, because we very easily are going to meet the criteria for the forgiveness of the loan. Once we have that confirmation that it is forgiven, then it will end up moving over into the income side of our ledger. Over onto the next slide, this is just the overall expenses for the church. You will see there that 71% of our expenses is staff salaries and benefits. Everything else ranges from the congregational administration, which includes everything from utilities through insurance, through buildings and grounds, office supplies, all of that. That's 18% of our overall budget. And the various other categories range on down to what we spend for what we call beloved community, which includes things like Committee on Ministry, the pastoral visitors, membership, and that is almost a whole 0.5% of our overall budget. That's why it shows a 0% on the pie chart. I do want to emphasize that this is a balanced budget. It actually shows a small surplus. It's a small one, but it is a surplus. So at this point, I would like to move that we approve the budget for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 as presented.
Excellent. Thank you, Stan. Is there a second for that?
Second.
All right. The question is on approving the fiscal year 2021 budget as presented. And before we open up the discussion, once again, I'll remind everyone how this works. You need to use the chat box to make note of your desire to be recognized to speak. Running online congregational meetings is a very complex undertaking. So if you want to speak, you have to put pro, con, or order in the chat box. And if you're on your phone, someone is monitoring the phones and will acknowledge that you want to speak. Pro, con, or order are the only things that you type in the chat box. Don't type your comment in the chat box. Pro, con, or order. And then wait, because Elizabeth Breeden is monitoring the con side, Elaine Chapman is monitoring the pro, and Matthew is monitoring the order. And we're going to go back and forth to make sure that everyone is heard. Once again, we'll alternate between pro and con, and you have to use that chat box to get permission to speak. So if you want to make a comment about the budget, we're going to have a pro go first. Stan is going to go first, and then we're going to go back and forth. After Stan, then we'll start with comments from everyone else. So Stan, you're up first.
Actually, Lori, I have a question. Someone has raised a point of order. They wanted to comment about the voting procedure.
Sure, let's take a point of order first, and then we'll go to Stan.
Okay, and that is Estelle Phillips.
Estelle, go ahead.
Thank you. I understand your concern about spending an extra $89 for voting. However, and I think there's a way around that. I feel that to combine the two disturbs me greatly. This is an important, both are important decisions, but the decision about changing the name is something that has been so important to the congregation to consider, that we've had all these meetings and discussions, and this is going on for a long time. So it's a very important decision. I cannot see combining it with the vote for the budget. So here's what I would put out there as a suggestion. Estelle, wait just a sec. It's not combined.
It's
when you
two
get the
separate
vote.
questions on a single ballot.
Oh.
Yeah, it's two separate questions on a single ballot. It's
not
vote for one, a yes for one is a yes for the other. It's two questions on one piece of virtual.
So you can vote yes for one and no for the other.
That is
okay,
correct.
I did not understand it. Very good. Okay.
Got it. Okay, now Stan, you're up.
I have very little to say other than this is a balanced budget. It's the first one we've had in years. I don't have a clue what we could do with it differently right now if this doesn't pass. So I urge you, please pass this budget.
All right. Thank you so much, Stan. All right, we'll take a con. Elizabeth, are you doing the con?
I don't have one yet.
Don't have one yet. All right, Elaine, do you have someone, a pro?
No, I have none.
All right. Well, we'll give it a sec here. If there is no, well, now you've just jumped ahead and I've lost my place. All right. All right. If there is no discussion, And I don't see anything either. It's hard for me to monitor the chat box, but I don't see anything up there. We will be voting on this after the name change discussion. And the budget vote takes a simple majority. The budget vote just takes 51%. All right, well, we've only been at this for half an hour. We were thinking we would take a bio break at the end of this discussion, but let's try to go a little bit longer and open this up and keep going on the script here. I think we've only been in this meeting for 30 minutes. All right, so next up on the agenda is the presentation and discussion regarding changing the name of the church. And after this discussion, we're voting on both motions before us. One ballot, 2 questions. So let me first give you a brief background on the Board of Trustees process to bring this name change issue to the congregation today. Over the years, there has been growing concern about the name Thomas Jefferson in our church identity. And in 2019, a group initially formed from the Raising Anti-Racist Children Covenant group, led by David Meller, submitted a petition to the board signed by more than 20% of the congregation. Many of you will remember that. With this petition, the public witness process was initiated at the September 15th congregational meeting, and their motion to proceed with the public witness process was approved. So that was September last year. All right, this group was moving through the steps of the public witness process when the coronavirus pandemic shut down our in-person church gatherings in March of 2021. Among the other things brought to us in 2021, the need for us to continue undoing anti-racist work is among the most important. Massive protests around racist police violence, and strong urging from members of the congregation for us to show leadership in this area. The board voted unanimously in July to appoint a task force to guide the church to address the name change issue. And by creating this task force, we changed the process and pulled this out of the public witness process to a board-initiated priority. By doing this, the board speeded this up because we felt this was such an important issue that the board gave this issue a little push to the front of the line. We are still keeping the 80% pass rate that would be required of the public witness process, and the task force still did the cottage conversations as they would have done with a public witness process. And we're keeping the 80% pass rate of the public witness process, not only to recognize the historical moment of this vote, but also we want to set the highest possible bar to demonstrate our community's mandate for this change. If we're going to do it, we really want to do it. We want to have the majority of the congregation, a supermajority, on board with changing our name. So you're about to hear 3 different presentations from the task force, and then everyone will have opportunities to comment during the discussion time. And I encourage you to listen to the comments with an open mind. Many people ask why the bylaws require members to be present to vote at congregational meetings. And the listening and the discussion that we are about to engage in is why. We can listen to each other's thoughts and ideas and try to empathize and understand people different than ourselves, people with different points of view than ourselves. That's why we're all here. That is the 5th principle of Unitarian Universalism. So after this discussion, you will have a chance to vote on both motions, the budget, the approval of the budget, and then the name change. And on the name change, you can vote yes or no, or you can vote to abstain. And if you vote to abstain, your vote will be recorded, but the abstentions will not be used to calculate the 80% needed for passage. So I encourage you to vote this either up or down. An abstention, your vote will be recorded, but it will not be used to calculate the percentage to pass this motion. Now, a lot of people ask, what happens next? We're all anxious to get to the next step. And I think right now, the answer is, we don't know. We have to get through one step at a time. And the first step is the discussion and vote today on whether or not we are changing the name of the church. If the name change motion passes, the board is going to create opportunities and input for discussions around choosing a name. We'll go into that with open minds and open hearts and a commitment to stay in covenant. And we'll set a date for another congregational meeting to make a selection of a new name. But that's not what's happening today. Today, we're only voting to change or not to change. We don't have a new name. There's no buzz yet about a new name. That's a whole separate committee. That's a whole different congregational meeting. Alternatively, if we don't have the 80% yes votes to pass this measure today, the board will come forward soon with what our next steps will be for our congregation to process what we have learned today. Our church's work of learning about and taking action on racial justice, undoing racism, and grappling with our own identity will, of course, continue. And either way, if this motion carries or if it doesn't, we will continue our faith journey together. We will continue our fellowship, learning, healing, and working for justice. Sean will put up the slide showing the names of those on the name change task force. So please let me introduce you to the members of the name change task force. Co-chairs Christine Gresser and Liberty Powers, Matthew Diazio, Lauren Dornan, Bonnie Hanson, Caroline Landis, David Meller, Debbie Norton, Catherine Valenzuela Parsons, James Watson, and staff liaison Sean Scally. This group joins the ranks of those committees and task forces and educators in our congregation who over the years have worked on dismantling racism and congregational name change efforts for the past 20 years. Please join me in thanking this task force and all of the previous groups and individuals who have helped move us forward in talking about and learning about these complex issues. Our first speaker from the task force is co-chair Christine Gresser. Christine?
Thank you, Lori. We are a people of diverse beliefs and priorities. The things that bind us here in our congregation are our mission statement, our church's covenant, and our UU purposes and principles. One principle we especially celebrate and uphold today is the fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. This is a big deal, holding a vote to potentially change the name of our congregation. It is democracy in action, and it is a chance for each of us to have a voice and a vote. Let us please hear each other respectfully. We can just listen, and then we can vote. Here's our question. What do you want this church to be named, and why? This vote is not about whether Jefferson's bad outweighs his good or vice versa. That is not what we are voting on today at all. Today's vote is about what do we want our name to be? What do we want our name to say about us? And what kind of name is going to help us manifest our mission and also to have the public identity that we want to have in our community and in our world? How can our name help us to know and declare who we are? And how can our name not divide and not cause harm? I'm sure that we will hear people talk about Jefferson's accomplishments today, and that's okay. We know he accomplished a lot, but Black and brown neighbors, people of color in our community, have told us this name is a barrier to them. We have spoken with dozens of people of color in our own Charlottesville community who are hurt by this name. Now, of course, not everyone who's a person of color is hurt by this name. Black people, people of color are not a monolith. But the fact that you can find some folks who enjoy or love the name does not negate the fact that others are harmed by it. This is just a fact that this name causes harm to many people of color. So do we keep the name? Because some of us like it and we want to have what we like. Or do we change the name and accept that those of us who love Jefferson can honor him in our own fellowship groups and study groups within this church? There's nothing stopping that from happening. But when it comes to the name of the whole congregation, we have the power today to move forward to choose an inclusive and welcoming name that bars and hurts no one. Will we take that historic and powerful action? You can love Jefferson and still vote yes for this name change. Of course we can, because as much as some of us might love Jefferson, I believe that we love our neighbors today in 2020 even more. Let us celebrate today that we can disagree. We can listen to each other with wildly differing opinions sometimes, and we can let each other say our piece, and then let us vote. And I hope that our vote results today will show our Black and brown neighbors and all the people of color in our larger community and throughout our entire UU denomination that we hear them and we want to take our next steps to be the liberal and liberatory faith that we aspire to be, and that this contentious, divided, frightening world so needs and so longs for. Unitarian Universalism is a powerful, beautiful, restorative, comforting, energizing faith, and we are so grateful to have a safe haven to believe what we believe and to help make this world a better place. How can we help those who might find us, work with us, to know this congregation for who we really are? Identity is important, and for us here today, it's going to start with making a choice about our name. And it's going to start with listening, hearing, sharing the time, letting other people be who they are, speaking our truths. And then when the listening and sharing is all said and done, everyone will have the opportunity to decide what to do with your very precious vote. May we use it well.
Thank you, Christine. That was lovely. I'd now like to introduce Catherine Valenzuela Parsons, a member of our congregation and a member of the TJMC Name Change Task Force.
Hi. Yes, I first want to introduce myself to anyone who I haven't met yet since I left Charlottesville in 2018. My name is Catherine Valenzuela Parsons. I am a brown Mexican woman who was born on the north side of the imaginary line in the river. I moved to Charlottesville in 2014 and began attending church here with my children. I've had a lot of thoughts about what I could say at this meeting. For example, I have felt racism present in our church and community. I have felt disdain of erasure as a brown person caught in the binary of race in our church. And I have seen that cultural appropriation is still so difficult for UUs to understand. Instead of the past, at our task force meeting last week, we spent time dreaming what our church could look like in 5 years. I imagine a variety of guest performers like Black spoken word artists, Spanish lyrics, Indigenous musicians who would be wholeheartedly supported by our financial abundance. When my friend calls to say that she won't call the police on her abusive husband because he's Black, I dream about how it would be to have a spiritual home to attend together that is focused on racial equity, accessibility, safe spaces for our youth, and dismantling systems of oppression. Yes, I even believe that white men need to heal from the harmful patriarchal ways of our society. So for someone like me who has made decolonizing and anti-racism a priority, what would happen if in 5 years I moved here and I Google Unitarian Universalism and see the name Thomas Jefferson? I don't think I would attend that time. I wouldn't visit. I wouldn't have received the support that I did from Eric when my life was filled with trauma and chaos, or from Leah and Caroline who created a safe space for my kids, or Beth and others who brought me meals after my daughter Scarlett was born. Would those artists come to feed our spiritual needs that I'm dreaming about? In Alandria Williams' last Facebook Live video, they spoke about the extent of self-care as a community. They said, we need to spend the time right now to learn to organize to care for each other, learn how we build spaces of restoration. This is just as equally important as abolition. You can't have abolition if you don't have free space. If we aren't liberated as a community, we can't be liberated, period, because we don't even know what that feels like. What does it take to build in regular people? Are we actually caring for ourselves in this way? Who do we want to be as a community? I personally believe that changing the name to remove Thomas Jefferson would show that we are ready to move forward into a future that is a safer space for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, and I ask you to please vote yes for this name change. Let's make our next, although symbolic, significant step in our journey to live our UU values and build a resilient culture.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Very meaningful. All right. And finally, the last presentation is a video put together by Caroline Landis featuring the youth of our church. Here we go.
Sean, we're not hearing the sound. Could you start it again?
Hi, I'm Caroline Landis, a lifelong Unitarian Universalist and member of TJMCUU. Last month, I facilitated a youth cottage conversation with my youth group about the name change of our church with about 25 participants, including members of my youth group, our advisors, and parents. By the end of this conversation, we unanimously agreed that in order to stop causing harm to people in our community and to be a more accepting and loving place of worship, we needed to vote yes to change the name of our church. Please think of the youth and the future of this church when you vote yes to change our name. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric, and I'm a youth here at TJMCUU. Please think of the future of this faith and think of the generation when you vote yes for changing the name of this church. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caroline Oldham. I'm a youth at TJMCUU. I encourage you to vote yes on the name change so we can continue building a community that feels welcoming and accepting to all. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Hank, and I'd like you to vote yes to changing the name of our church.
Hi, my name's Zoe, and I urge you on our church's youth behalf to vote yes for our church's name change. Let's begin a new chapter that invites all to join and that invites us, as a congregation, towards a future of inclusivity.
Hi, my name's Ivan, and I'm a youth here at church, and I think you should vote yes to the name change because it promotes inclusivity and positivity, and it's a small sacrifice to make for the future of our church.
Excellent. That was an amazing video. Thank you. Thank you, Caroline, and thank you to the youth of our church for putting that together. All right. At this time, I'm going to recognize Liberty Powers, the co-chair, one of the co-chairs of the Name Change Task Force, to read the motion we'll be voting on. Liberty?
Our motion states that I move that we approve as presented before the congregation the motion, which reads as follows. We, the members of Thomas Jefferson Memorial Church, Unitarian Universalists, shall change the name of our congregation to a new name that does not contain Thomas Jefferson.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. The question is on approving the TJMC name change motion as presented. And now we have been at this meeting for 1 hour. Before we begin the discussion, I'm going to suggest we take a 5-minute bio break. I see it is 1:52. How about we take an 8-minute bio break? We will start the discussion at 2 o'clock. I don't want anyone to miss anything. So if you'd like to mute yourself, stop your video, or just sit here for 8 minutes, let's take a short break. We'll begin the discussion at 2 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.
We will have some music here in a second while we break. So see everybody back at 2.
Oh, while you all are at it, you can go to your email and make sure you found your election buddy stuff so it's easy to get back to when the discussion is over.
Dawn, are you okay if I play my music request for the break?
Yeah, go for it.
Great.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices 3, singing together in harmony, is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
All right, that song was perfectly timed to end just when we're ready to get started. All right, so we're back for the second half of our congregational meeting, and we're about to engage in the discussion surrounding the name change. This is my foster cat who is available for adoption, and she's doing nothing to market herself positively. So, bye, cat. Here's the procedures once again. If you wish to engage in the discussion, you'll need to use the chat box to make note of your desire to be recognized to speak. And you'll type one of three things in the chat box. Pro, to indicate you want to speak in favor of the motion. Con, to indicate you want to speak in opposition to the motion. Or order, for a point of order or a procedural question. Pro, con, or order are the only things to type in that chat box. Do not type your comment in the chat box. And then wait to be recognized before you unmute and begin to speak. Elizabeth Breeden is monitoring the con comments. Elaine Chapman is monitoring the pro, and Matthew is looking for points of order. Points of order will jump to the front of the line so that we can answer those, but we'll go back and forth with pros and cons. Let's see. People who are accessing the meeting by phone should unmute themselves and wait to speak until they are recognized. And your phone can be muted and unmuted by typing *6. That's a helpful little thing to know. And once again, there is a password for extra security on this voting. So if you look at your email now, your ballot is in there, but you cannot vote until this discussion has concluded and we give out the password. So just hang on until we're done with this discussion, and then we'll give out the passwords. So at this time, we'll begin the discussion. We'll start with a pro.
We have a few orders, actually.
I'm sorry, you have a few points of order?
Yes.
All right, let's start with the points of order. Matthew, go ahead.
I do want to also make a reminder, a point of order is about this meeting. It's not about the way the task force worked. Unless you are relating that to the broader process of the meeting. But the first point of order is Sharon Biacco.
Sharon, you're up.
Matt, can you unmute her, or do you need me to?
Oh, can you unmute her? Sorry, I'm going through the chat.
All right, Sharon, should be able to unmute now.
Thanks. I have a question about the actual name change motion. And I noticed that it was just the words Thomas Jefferson that were highlighted. And I want to know whether it is possible for us to change more words than that in the name change.
Yes, I believe they're intentionally leaving out the Thomas Jefferson, but the whole name is up for change. We can move to congregation, we can keep church, we can do anything, but I think the motion highlights that the name Thomas Jefferson is being intentionally left out. Everything else is up for grabs.
Thank you.
Matthew, you got another one?
I do. Mitch and Betty King.
All right, Mitch and Betty, go ahead, please.
I tried unmuting them. Did I do that at the same time as you, San? There we go.
Oh, no, there we go.
All right, Mitch and Betty, go ahead. You've unmuted.
Okay, we've tried quite a few times to get the video going, but it won't. So we'll just have to live with the black and white screen. Yeah, two questions. And one is, could you review the reasons why the Thomas Jefferson name is there in the first place? And the second is...
Mitch, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Is this about the way the meeting is running?
I thought it was a pretty straightforward question. If I need to repeat it, I will.
No, I'm sorry. Like, Mitch, excuse me. This is about the way the meeting is running. This isn't about the entire existence of the process.
Are you pretending not to understand my question?
Mitch,
no, I am understanding your
well, but
question.
it's a simple one. If you can't do it, say no, we're not going to do it. Can you explain why the name Thomas Jefferson was used in the first place?
Mitch, you need to ask your question at a different mic.
Yeah, I think those questions were covered in the both in the literature that the name change task force passed out, and also I think that was probably answered in a cottage conversation. So if you were to go back and look at either the literature or I don't know if you attended a cottage conversation, I think those issues were addressed there. Do you have a second part to your question, Mitch?
Yeah, and that was just that, have you considered simply voting on selecting a committee that would propose alternative names rather than asking us to vote to commit to a change when we don't know what that's going to be?
Yeah, I think that was the point that I made early on, that for this vote and this discussion today, we're only talking about up or down, should we change it or should we not change it? Going beyond that to what we should change it to, I think that requires a broader discussion, and we want to engage as many people as possible. You can imagine that that will be tricky with the pandemic and being unable to meet in person, but the board felt that at least going as far as acknowledging that we are changing the name was a timely action to take based on what happened this summer. We did not want to wait even 1 month longer, with or without a pandemic, to acknowledge that we need to change the name of this church. And going beyond that will require just what you said, more committees, more meetings, more discussion, more conversation. So that will be coming if this motion passes. But for right now today, it's just up or down, change it or not.
Yeah, I just thought it would be more logical to vote for a committee to propose alternatives before saying, whatever you come up with, I'm going to agree to one of your alternatives.
Right, right. And like I say, that is in the future. And I wish I could predict the future, but that's further down the line. Matthew, do you have any other point of order questions?
I do. Next is Tori Goodlow and Chris Little.
All right, Tori, you're probably unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Chris Little. Good afternoon, everyone. Lori, you touched on this already, and I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit further on the 80% threshold.
So the 80% threshold is the holdover from the public witness process. And when we vote on a public witness statement, the church requires 80% affirmative. And that's what we are making this process go faster than what the public witness process would, but we're keeping that 80% affirmative vote requirement. So you're able to vote 3 ways, yes, no, or abstain. And it will be, of the yes, no votes, we will need 80% yes to pass. Does that make sense? The abstention votes will not count in the pool. It will be yes or no. You will need 80% yeses. Matthew, another point of order?
From Carl Howe.
Carl, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay. My question is the impact of voting for the resolution. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're trying to hear you. Go ahead.
My concern is, what is the impact of voting for this particular motion? It says we shall change. It doesn't say we do change. Like, do we change it as a passive resolution, or do we pass it out? Do we change our name when we choose something? For example, my concern is, what do we call ourselves in the interim between the time we pass this motion today and the time that we actually open the water in the future? Are we a church called not Thomas Jefferson, which is called the Royal Universalist Unitarian Universalist Church, or do we call ourselves something else? My concern is, for example, what happens at the bank? Are we still called Thomas Jefferson Memorial Church for next year?
Carl, I'm so sorry. I don't think we're unable to, we cannot understand you. Is there a way that if you're on a phone, perhaps you can email your question in to Sean? Did anyone understand better what he was saying? I couldn't.
I heard and understood Carl's question pretty perfectly.
Can you repeat the question, Christine?
Yes, Carl is asking a question which is more really of a process question. It's actually not so much a point of order about this meeting. So I'm gonna state the question, and then I'm gonna ask Matthew to make a ruling on whether or not it's a point of order, and most likely he'll ask it to go later in the meeting.
Sure, Christine.
Carl's question was, if we pass the motion today to change the name of the church, between today and the date that a new name is chosen, are we the church with no name? Are we Thomas Jefferson Memorial Church? Are we a glyph, formerly known as? What do we call the church in the in-between time? It's really a process question about the name change process. It's really not a point of order question, Carl. Right. So we're going to go ahead and table your question and answer it later. And while I have the floor for 1 second, I do have a point of order to make, which is, beloved friends, Robert's Rules of Order is very complicated. Matthew is our parliamentarian. When he tells you that your question is not a point of order question, but you're actually speaking to the content of the motion, what you need to do is say, oh, I'm sorry, and be silent, okay? And then we'll make sure Matthew or Lori will make sure to recognize your question later. Point of order questions are specifically only about the meeting and the process question of the meeting, not at all about the name change. So please hold those until later.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's a great point. All right. Let's step back. Matthew, how many more points of order do you have on there? Can you tell me?
That is the end for now.
That's the end. Excellent. All right. Then let's move into the first pro speaker. Elizabeth, who's our first pro speaker? It was
Elaine's job, wasn't it?
Excuse me, Elaine. Who's our first pro speaker? You'll have to unmute.
Our first pro speaker is Liberty.
Yes, I believe that is correct. Elaine, you're still muted. Can you unmute? Oh, can someone unmute Elaine, please?
I have that the first speaker is Bonnie Hansen and then Liberty.
All right, I believe we decided that Liberty was going to speak first because she is the co-chair of the task force. So let's go Liberty first, and then Bonnie Hansen will be in the queue. Liberty, you're up as the first speaker here. And David, are you ready with your timepiece? Right, the time clock has its very own screen. So 2 minutes, and David will ring the jingle bells when you have 10 seconds left. Liberty, you're up.
Thank you, Bonnie, for waiting for a second. So hello all, my name is Liberty Powers, and I am so happy to be joining you here today. Please let me begin by expressing my deep thanks, first to the founders of this church, who took the courageous and radical steps in 1943 to gather as Unitarians in Charlottesville. I am very thankful for those spiritual ancestors who claimed their freedom of conscience and built a community to support these ideals. And I'm also grateful to the elders of this church who have faithfully nurtured this congregation by providing the guidance and the labor and the love to sustain us to the point we are today. And I am grateful to all the people who have stepped through the doors of 717 Rugby Road over the last 75 years, 60 years, to sit shoulder to shoulder, providing the valuable gift of one another's presence next to each other. What we nourish together is what's needed in the world, a welcoming community that supports freedom of thought, sacred inner growth, and acts of deep compassion towards ourselves, our community, and our world. So as we gather today, one Zoom face next to another, I will be holding on to this gratitude, and I hope you do too. And I hope you ask yourself, what choice can we make today so that those who come later will look back on us with gratitude for our strength, our clarity, and a bold vision of community driven by love and justice and a fierce agenda of dismantling oppression and expanding compassion. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Elizabeth, do we have a con speaker?
Dan Grogan.
Dan, please unmute yourself. You're up. No? Yes? Is Dan out there?
I don't see Dan on the participants list. Did he drop off?
He might have. He asked it a while ago.
All right.
I'll go look for him.
Do you have a different con speaker we can go to?
Nope, you're on pro.
No. Okay, let's take another pro speaker. Elaine, who do you have?
Bonnie Hanson.
Bonnie, please unmute yourself. You're up. I don't see Bonnie. Is she still here?
Yeah, she's here. Give her a second.
Thank you.
There you go. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Hi.
Hi.
We do have a historic opportunity today, and it is very exciting. And I am cognizant of that small, brave, well-meaning group who named us all those years ago. But I do have to say that their vision was limited by their times. And at the time, Charlottesville was a very segregated place. And this was a very white group. So haven't we shed those blinders? Hopefully we've grown in wisdom and compassion. And we see that our community holds the actual descendants of people enslaved on TJ's Mountain, at the university, in our city. So let's show that we care about social justice. Let's honor our principles by renaming ourselves. Let's put something on our shirts and our banners that we can be proud of when we stand shoulder to shoulder with the community doing racial justice work. Let's take this opportunity and do it. Let's say who we are. We are really not people who hold up Thomas Jefferson as our saint. Let's go for it.
All right, thank you. All right.
I understand that Dan is here, and so I'm hoping you get him now.
All right, Dan Grogan, you're up. Unmute yourself and.
Greetings. I was trying to unmute, but it was saying blocked, and it was really.
Your 2 minutes is going.
Pardon?
Your 2 minutes is going.
I had asked 3 questions while we were on break to the task force. Was just hoping that would be funneled to an appropriate person, and it was, what was the experience of our district task force, our district dropping Jefferson, and Linda or Wayne, I'm sure, could address that in due course. Was anyone on the task force that was not in favor of a change? And and this is a process order question of, will we be at the 80% affirmative to select a name? Will that still hold? Because we will be voting on the drop the name, it would appear, only today, as opposed to what's called for in the longer than 1 month public witness to be voted an exact on 2 different congregational meetings to cast as wide a net as possible. And I would like to thank the task force for all that it has done to amalgamate the information, particularly the thing about changes, other churches' changes of other churches using people's names and how problematic that is, particularly in the government political realm. I question the timing of the urgency of this as we, as a society, go through racial reckoning. And in our church, I feel like we haven't
10 seconds.
done as well as we might for our last fractious thing, which was ministerial change. And perhaps at this time of COVID, this adds.
Thank you so much, Dan. Elaine, do we have another pro speaker?
Yes, I have Wayne Amison.
Wayne Arneson?
Arneson.
Wayne?
But he has two pros, so maybe we want to combine them.
Two different speakers?
He entered it twice.
Oh.
I was just anxious to speak.
Yeah. All right.
Over 25
Wayne, there you
years, folks, my feelings about our church's name has changed. The first time this discussion came up, I did not encourage the kind of deep conversation that we've been having now. I was the church's minister, and I was frankly afraid of the conflict that it might create among us. But beyond that, I had a lack of understanding. I was captivated by my own emotional and intellectual attachment to Thomas Jefferson as the most famous Unitarian in the history of the world, and what I saw as positive associations that his name gave to our church. And I was blind to the perceptions and the feelings of many people of color in our community and across the nation recently and across the centuries who did not have that association with Jefferson and who heard his name as a symbol of the profound contradiction between saying that all are created equal and the fact of slavery and systemic racism among us. I recognize now that the time for having a UU congregation named for Jefferson attracting any positive regard for Unitarian Universalism has largely passed. I also used to think that Jefferson was a symbol for us to carry that was appropriate because as a predominantly white community of privilege, we still embody today all the contradictions he embodied in his time. He was a man of his time as well as a prophet of a new way of being together as a society. And I think in how we approach this decision today, we embody both of those things as well. I believe we can choose to be different than what we have been in the past. And how we name ourselves and who we memorialize in our public presentation to the world is part of choosing to change. So my hope is that our history with Jefferson's name will continue to be remembered and engaged, maybe in the signage within the building. But my aspiration is to move forward together to choose a new name that will speak to who we are becoming in the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Wayne. Let's see. Elizabeth, do you have a con?
Yes, Estelle Phillips.
All righty. Estelle, please unmute yourself and go right ahead.
So I signed up in the con column because I'm not in the pro column, but I'm actually more on the fence, but I have some points I'd like to make about it, having been a member of this church since roughly 1977. So the name of the church to me has always been a source of pride, you know, when I've said I'm associated with the Thomas Jefferson TJMC. And I think the church has had a tremendous history of positive actions in terms of racial justice in this community. And I think that certainly many people in the African American community in Charlottesville who are aware of the things that we've done would not look askance at us because of our name. I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that changing our name is going to have a big impact on who is drawn to this church. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's my sense. I think we wouldn't have Charlottesville as a major community in this country. Well, it isn't a major community, but a significant community in this country, let alone the University of Virginia, let alone the Unitarian Church here, if it weren't for Thomas Jefferson. The church, my understanding is the church was built here precisely because of Thomas Jefferson this was Thomas Jefferson's home. and that's why the whatever the UUA was called at that time, allocated the funds to build the church here. I can appreciate the arguments for changing the name of the church, and I can see where it would have some positive, repercussions as well. And Wayne's argument and Christine's argument are very powerful to me. But I just want to put out there.
That's 2 minutes, Estelle. Thank you so much. Let's see. Elaine, do we have another pro speaker?
Yes, the next speaker is John Nolan.
John, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know how I wound up registering to speak. I didn't mean to. It was inadvertent.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth, do you have another con speaker?
No, I do not.
Elaine, another pro speaker?
Yes, David Meller.
David, please unmute and go ahead.
Someone's going to need to unmute him.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Okay.
When deciding how we're voting, I would ask us to not consider the question of whether or not Thomas Jefferson was a good person. That's a question that we can't answer through this vote or through this process. Instead, I would urge us to consider the message that we want to convey about ourselves and the identity we want to project. Are we willing to err on the side of being a little bit more considerate and understanding of the wider community? Our name is indeed a value statement, and changing that is hard, but I hope that we can take this step and state that we value the feelings and the opinions and the considerations of others in the community more than we value this one person. He, of course, did stand for many good things and great ideals, but he also stood for many things that continue to hurt and to cause pain. This is a purely symbolic vote, and it's not going to change anything substantially in terms of our racial justice work, but it's an important symbolic step to make, I believe, and I would urge us to vote to change our name. Thank you.
Excellent. David, thank you so much. Elizabeth, do you have a con?
I do not.
Elaine, another pro?
Yes, Sherry Edgecombe.
Sherry, go ahead and unmute, please. There you are. I see you. Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, I can't.
No, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Oh, you can't? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Because the last message I got said
No.
Okay.
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
Sounds great. So I live in the neighborhood of Belvedere. Hello, everybody. And for those of you who have never met, I'm Sherry Edgecombe. I don't attend regularly. I am still a member. I live in the neighborhood of Belvedere. And in this neighborhood, we are sitting on the site of a former freed slave area. So there were a group of homes here. The road is called Free State. And now many of our streets are named after free Black men and women who lived here. On a recent trip to Monticello with my 10-year-old son, we learned how many of these slaves were connected directly to Monticello, and that had a really personal feeling and meaning to both of us. Towards the end of our visit there, I mentioned to him that our church that we go to, that he frankly hasn't attended much in his life, but he is still dedicated there, was named after Thomas Jefferson. And I asked him how he felt about that. And his initial answer was, okay. And we had been talking throughout the tour about both the good and more difficult points of Thomas Jefferson. So I asked him a second question, which was, how do you think you would feel if you were the descendant of the enslaved workers here? How would you feel about going to a church named after Thomas Jefferson? And he just had a one-word answer, which was bad. I think when a 10-year-old can see that this complex history from this man can harm some people, even though it's not harming him, I think it's important, and I just wanted to share that with people. Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. David Shutt, I don't think your little jingle bells are working because I've been listening for the 10-second marker, but for whatever reason, I'm not hearing them. So I don't know, maybe ring the jingle bells a little louder. All right, that was a pro. Elizabeth, do you have a con?
No, I do not.
All right, Elaine, another pro?
Yes, Tori Goodlow and Chris Little, they've registered twice. Maybe it can be combined.
All right, Tori and Chris, you can go ahead, unmute and go ahead. Oops, Sean, will you unmute them, please? Go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon again, everyone. This is Chris. I'm in favor of the change, and I agree with the sentiment, which I know is quite commonplace, that this name change is not going to kind of solve all our problems. But I do think it's important to ask ourselves in terms of kind of what we stand for, who we aspire to become, and the change we aspire to lead in the world. And those we want to include who have up until this point in time not felt included. You know, will this vote move the needle in one direction or the other direction relative to all of that? And I believe voting in favor of the change will move the needle in the right direction, and that's the direction we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tori, did you want to say anything?
No.
Okay, got it all there. All righty. Elizabeth, any cons?
No, I have somebody who wants to talk again, so they agreed that they'd wait till the end of everyone talking.
That sounds right. Elaine, do we just have pro speakers right now then?
Yes, I have 4 more.
Okay. David Shutt, can we limit these to 1 minute then, since we have only one side of the issue going on? All right, Elaine, let's hear from the next pro speaker, and you have 1 minute.
It's Joanna, and I'm not sure of the last name or whether there are 2 Joannas. She's registered twice.
Okay. Joanna, please unmute yourself and go ahead. You've got 1 minute. All right. I don't see anyone.
Who is it now we're looking for?
Joanna?
It's Joanna.
Joanna, if you're on a call-in phone, you can do *6.
The host.
There we go.
There we go.
Joanna, I said you go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead. 1 minute.
Okay, my name is Joanna Hickman, and I'm a relatively new member of the church, although I've been attending for a couple of years now. I want to say I'm in favor of this, but originally I was against the name change. And I did some research into Thomas Jefferson. And I've got to say, I believe that Thomas Jefferson is a great man. He has many contributions to our country and our democracy and the founding. And what he's done is historically great. And he deserves to be remembered and memorialized. And he will be remembered and memorialized by other organizations, notably the University of Virginia and Montpelier Foundation, Monticello Foundation, and many other organizations. So we will not forget him. But in considering the name of the church, I think we should look for someone who agrees with our values and our.
All right, thank you, Joanna. Yeah, David Shutt, I think you're muted because I watched you ring those bells. I can see them, but I didn't hear a thing. All right, Elaine, another pro speaker, and they have 1 minute.
Debbie Norton.
Debbie Norton, please unmute yourself and go ahead. I know she's on here. I saw her.
Yep. Debbie, go ahead and unmute.
Oh, okay. Now you can hear me. I'm sorry. So
Hello, I'm on the name change task force as well, and I see this as an opportunity for us to acknowledge our collective trauma and to heal collective trauma. I see it as an opportunity for us to live within our own covenants, which include celebrating diversity, nurturing our inclusivity, and also promoting justice, social justice within the congregation and the larger community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Elaine, another pro speaker?
Sharon Bianco.
Sharon Bianco, please unmute and go ahead. You have 1 minute. I know you're out there, Sharon. I don't see you yet, though.
Fine, okay.
Okay.
Very much in favor of this name change, but I have to be honest that I thought it was going to be larger than the Thomas Jefferson part. I have had a real problem with the word church in our name. And I hope that the congregation will really explore what that means to our friends who are of Jewish and Buddhist and other religious faiths, but who have no other place to worship here in Charlottesville. And I have a Jewish friend. She doesn't practice her faith, but she was coming for a while to our church. And it really kind of, it bothered her. She felt very uncomfortable. And I'm just opening this up for you to realize that that a name has much broader complications than just the name of our patron.
10 seconds.
Done.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sharon. Elaine, another pro speaker for 1 minute.
Our last speakers are Frank and Linda Dukes.
Frank and Linda, go ahead and unmute. You have 1 minute.
It's actually Frank Dukes.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, and I appreciate the arguments that have been made. Appreciate Estelle and Dan that you actually brought up, which much of what is in many people's thoughts. I just have one other element to add. The last 13 years, I've been very deeply enmeshed in Charlottesville in listening to stories told by many African Americans, some of them descendants, some of them simply long-term descendants of the enslaved, some of them simply long-term members. So many ways they see themselves recognized. In so many ways they see themselves excluded. The name for the University of Richmond Foundation. This is an opportunity, a very small one, but it's an opportunity to remove a barrier for those people, those of our neighbors, those of our community members, many of whom have real enormous ownership in this community, for us to be able to say, hey, you are part of us also, we are part of you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Frank.
And so, yeah, Dan Grogan would like his 1 minute, please.
All right, Dan, you have 1 minute from a con speaker. Go ahead and unmute.
Here we go.
Go ahead.
Frank, thanks for your comments and particularly all your work. And you're a standard bearer for many of us. And it's huge. And one aspect, perhaps only peripherally, is it's not widely known that the very ground our church is on was Jefferson's first site for the university, but famously in the exchange with the farmer that wouldn't sell the land to him, he said he'd see him in hell before he'd see his money, because Jefferson's credit was known far and wide. This is a ex-governor and president. Anyway, there are many contradictions of this founder, and were we to keep the name, we would strangely, Eric and I came to an agreement, because if we had the name, it was up to us to point out the contradictions and the shortcomings of Jefferson. And
Thank you so much, Dan. That was 1 minute. Let's see, Elaine, any more pro speakers?
No, not at all.
All right, Elizabeth, any more con speakers?
Nope, we're ready to go.
All righty, I think we'll give it just a second here. Last call for anyone pro or con in the chat box. Otherwise, we're just about ready to wrap up this discussion.
Lori, we have Matthew as a pro.
Okay. Matthew, unmute and go ahead then.
Hi, this is just me personally, not in any official capacity. I was on the name change task force. I will admit, and I was actually glad to hear other people say this, I used to not think we should change the name of the church. I've only come to that conclusion in perhaps the last 2 or 3 years. I used to think it was, again, it was a point of pride. I did also assume it meant we had a more direct connection, but it doesn't seem that we do, aside from perhaps the citing, which is very indirect. But we can't contextualize a name. The name is meant to be our brand and short and concise. And so we can't contextualize within that framework. And I also think people have pointed out, often we're shortened to just the name Thomas Jefferson Church by people outside of our community. They don't realize perhaps the most important part of our church, which is that we are part of the free and liberal Unitarian Universalist tradition.
10 seconds.
And so that is part of why I've evolved on this. And I'm glad to have heard other people have done this as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Matthew. All right, Elizabeth, any more con?
No, I believe that's it. Again,
Elaine,
they just want you to vote.
No, we're done.
All righty. This will conclude then our discussion, and it's almost time to vote. But don't leave this meeting yet because you need the password. So let me just restate the 2 motions are, first, to approve the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget as presented. And right there it is. Sean has put up a screen. And the second motion states, we, the members of Thomas Jefferson Memorial Church Unitarian Universalist, shall change the name of our congregation to a new name that does not contain Thomas Jefferson. The motion to accept the church's annual budget as presented requires a 51% majority in order to pass. And as I said before, the name change motion requires an 80% yes vote in order to pass. And again, please note that if you abstain your vote today, your vote will be recorded, but abstentions will not be used to calculate the 80% needed for passage. In other words, it will be 80% of the yes/no votes. 80% yes will be a pass of the people voting yes or no. The abstentions will not count. All right. So here we go. The secret password for Election Buddy is Covenant, all lowercase. There, Sean's putting it up on the screen. I'm putting it in the chat box. If you would like to cut and paste, you will need that for your Election Buddy. Now's the time to access your ballot and enter your vote. The ballot is in your email account. Please fill it out and submit it. And for those of you without internet access, Sean or Caroline will take you to a breakout room to collect your vote. And if you have any technical difficulties, please email Sean and he will help you out. At this time, we're going to pause the meeting about 15 minutes and give everyone.
What's it saying?
What?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. We're gonna pause the meeting about 15 minutes so that everyone can go check your inbox and do your vote.
Please notice your inbox, you have an access code and it's a different one than you had the last time. So you use the access code you were sent and then the password and put the password in new because it might have been different last time.
Right. But you have 15 minutes to accomplish all this. And if you need any help whatsoever, email Sean and he'll be happy to help. We have lots of people standing by. And
also chat in the chat room, you can say help and one of us will try to answer.
Correct. All righty. So we're going to have some fabulous music again while we all go off and vote. And I believe that's it. And the results will be announced in 15 minutes. Election Buddy is amazing. It will tell us the answer shortly after we come back. So go vote, and I'll see you again in 15 minutes.
just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Call me if you need a friend. Call me if you need a friend. If you ever need a friend, call me. 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 If you need a friend, call me. Call me. Call me. Call me. Call me. Call me. Call me.
If some of you have messages saying that you needed help, or sent me a message saying you needed help, please check to make sure that you can join a breakout room where somebody's waiting to help you. Thank you.
Things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light, I am light. I am light, I'm not the mistakes that I made, or any of the things that caused me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light.
few more minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. Yeah. I am divinity defined. I am the God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all. I am light.
Love getting prices that are lower than low on food that's fresher than fresh? Then shop at Kroger. We give you more ways to save on the fresh you love with tools like the Kroger app, where you can find personalized coupons on top of weekly sales, giving you
Beth,
prices that are
you know that
lower
you're
than
playing
the
an ad.
everyday low. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
If you like extra cash, the Kroger Rewards MasterCard is the card for you. You'll earn 5% cash back on the first $2,500 you spend. Tap to learn more.
Geico knows there are many reasons why you ride, from the thrill of the revving engine and pure adrenaline.
Yeah, we could probably take the music off for a little while. Sean says there are quite a few people in breakout rooms having trouble figuring out the vote. So let's just hang out here for a few more minutes.
I love the songs that you chose, Beth or Caroline, whoever chose them. They're beautiful songs. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I love that R&D song.
Is there anybody else here who needs help voting? Hey, Dave, I'll have to work with you on that. I don't know why you're not showing up on my participant list. I put you in a room and then all of a sudden you just disappeared. So sorry about that, man.
Kudos to the tech team. They're working hard behind the scenes.
Yes, definitely. This is no small undertaking to put together one of these. And
thanks.
You know, for everyone who thinks that they know a little or a lot about working with Zoom or working with your computer or muting and unmuting, I can guarantee you that there are people who know both more and less than you within our group here. And I see 127 participants in this meeting right now, which is an awful lot of souls to take care of. So please be patient with our tech team and with the process. We should have our answer in just a few minutes. But these congregational meetings are a work of art when you look at them at the end, that things have gone smoothly to get to where we are. So thank you for your patience.
All right, it looks like everybody's out of the break rooms. I have no more emails, so I think I'm going to close all the rooms. I think we are done.
Okay, just a couple more minutes then, and we'll announce the vote. Sean, you can send me a private message if you want.
I'd like to read Carolyn's comment out loud.
No, we can't send a private message. He's got to tell us all at the same time. You can't hear early.
I get to hear early because I have
to think you are the president.
I have the script, and by God, if I have the script, I'm going to use it, girl. So you just hang right there.
Carolyn Fitzpatrick comments in the chat, I think you all are awesome, and this meeting is being conducted beautifully. Special thanks to Beth Jager-Landis for soulfully selecting last night songs of love and community and fellowship and unity and camaraderie. So thank you for that labor, Beth, of selecting some great music. And thank you to Catherine for the great Jimi Hendrix break during the bio break. All good songs. Good to be together.
All right, for those of you waiting with deep anticipation, welcome back and thank you for your patience. Here we go. The budget passed at 100%. Hooray. And the name change also passed with a rate of 95.5% in favor, 84 votes versus 4 votes to the con. So both measures have passed, both the name change and the budget have passed. All right, the chair now recognizes Reverend Linda to offer some closing words and wrap it up. Linda, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. That came quickly. We answered a lot of the questions earlier on. So let me just say a few words. I was so struck that Alandria Williams died this week, and she was such a fighter for all the causes of justice and racial justice. And she wrote some words as her life was ending. She was only 41, and I wanted to share some of hers as our closing words. She said, "We are part of the tissue that holds the legacy and the future of our faith. We are the children of freedom fighters, visionaries, and radical liberal theologians. We are the phoenix rising out of the ashes of the McCarthy era, and civil rights, women, and queer liberation movements. We are the survivors and beneficiaries of beliefs and programming that encouraged us to be change makers, boundary pushers, and institutionalists at the same time. We must remember that our actions affect others, so we must place care at the center. That is how we work towards liberation for us all." Alandria was the past co-moderator of the UUA, whose life ended far too soon this week. And as we end our meeting today, let us acknowledge that there are probably some among us who are both loving this congregation and perhaps feeling let down. There are those among us who are very happy and resolved. There are some people that maybe have felt unheard and others who feel like it's been taking too long to be heard. There is a rainbow of feelings in this congregation, but let us acknowledge and give thanks for this truth. Underneath it all, there is a unity. There is a common ground of love and covenant and ideals which holds us all. I am grateful for each of you being part of this connective tissue which continues to hold this precious legacy and the future for this faith and for this congregation. Amen.
Thank you so much, Linda. All right, there being no further business to come before the congregation, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. The motion was made. Someone needs to second it.
Second.
All right, everyone go down to your participant window. It's your moment to shine. Hit participants. Look for the little green check, unless you want to sit here for another few hours and talk. Please check yes to end this meeting. Right? I see 76, 80. We're just bouncing up. All right, I think you all want to be released. The majority carries, and this we have now adjourned this meeting. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. This concludes the congregational meeting for today, and thank you everyone so much for participating. Once again, the board is so happy to have such amazing participation from the congregation. We're happy to do the work, but it makes us feel so much better when you know what we know. That means the world to us. So thank you again for coming to this meeting. Thanks to everyone for participating in the democratic process. And I look forward to seeing everyone again next Sunday, if not sooner. Thanks to all. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you, Lori. Beautiful job facilitating. You're a great facilitator.
Always a joy.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Lori, all that training, telling people where to sit comes to the fore.
Right? Pointing with 2 fingers, girl. You know it.
Thank you.